Hey guys, it's Carissa, and welcome back to 12 Days of Creative Christmas on my YouTube channel, Ingy Fairy Designs. Today we're jumping into day 6 with this mixed media page. It is Mixed Media Monday, so I thought it'd be fun to put this up today. I'm starting with matte medium. I have I've cut out some triangular shapes from some of my absolute favorite pattern paper that I have been hoarding for years. It's a company that's no longer in business, called October Afternoon, and I just loved their vintage style. And you know what? It was time to just cut into it and use it, and so I did. And it was a great starting place for me. I'm using a page that you might recognize from my mixed media guest post with Ranger ink last week. I was cleaning off my foam brush on this page, and I loved the color and dots and everything, and so I thought I would just go ahead and jump into it and use it as another starting point. So one thing that I like about collage, and I don't do it a lot, but one thing I do like about it is that I draw inspiration from the design and the colors in the paper when I'm using pattern paper. And I have tons of pattern paper because, I came from the world of card making, and I still love pattern paper very much. And like I said, this is pattern paper that I've had for ages. And I like to kind of draw inspiration from those colors. So that's what you'll see throughout this page. What I'm doing here is I'm adding a little bit of gesso, just very lightly. I still want to see those colors and those patterns through. And I've had these Lindy's Stamp Gang colors. It's a set. And I'll have a list of all of the supplies that I use, of course, below. And I've had them sitting on my desk, and I thought, wow, these colors kind of match these papers, so I wanted to use them. I wanted to test them out. I have not used them regularly before. I think I had one color before I picked up this set recently, and it's been sitting on my desk. And that's one thing that I love, is that if you get something that you want to use, keep it on your desk, keep it in front of your view, so that at some point you'll look over and you'll say, oh yeah, I wanted to use those. So I started spraying them all over my page, and they are very, very vivid. So I brought in these Dina Wakley media scribble sticks that were still out on my desk from a previous project that we just did. And so I'm adding some definition around the trees. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with this yet. I had a vision in my head. I mentioned this on my Instagram posts as I kind of shared my process over there. So if you're not following me at Inky Fairy Designs on Instagram, I'd love to see you over there. I do a lot of progress photos, so you can kind of see what I'm working on, and in progress, different various stages. And I did that with this project, and it was kind of fun to see the morphing that it did. So but what I was saying is that I had the vision of the trees. That's all I had. Was I wanted this like page to be these just very graphic triangular trees. And after that, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then the colors came from the design papers that I used. And then everything else kind of was like, oh, I want to use this, or I want to use that, like the sprays matched. And then I wanted to make more definition, so I pulled out scribble sticks that matched those colors. And then I thought, I haven't used modeling paste in a while, so I pulled that out. And I love this stencil by Sean Petit, because I feel like all of the this postage stamp kind of things on there really matched. I don't know, because we always, like, a lot of us send out Christmas cards. Usually most of us send out holiday cards, and so those kind of like just match the theme of this page. So my camera died that night, and that's when I decided to kind of put a stop to this page. And I decided, as I went into bed, I thought, oh, I need to add some bright colors around the trees. So that's what I did. when I woke up the next day. I pulled out these colors. You saw it was like some Jane Davenport paints, and then a Pebeo, heavy acrylic, and then I wanted some yellow, so I pulled out Lemon from Dina Wakley Media, and I decided that I was going to go super bright because we have kind of like this muted look in the background, and it's very monotone in a way. There's like blues and greens, and the green, I'll be honest with you, I don't know why green shows up so much in my art journaling, but it does, and I don't know why, because it's not one of my favorite colors. So I think that's where I was struggling so much with this page before I put it aside, and coming up with this idea of adding the bright colors around my trees. Really started to develop this page, and I could see it coming together much more clearly. So I wanted to create like this really bright background, but I wanted the edges to be dark, kind of creating that night sky with the northern lights in it, because that's kind of really inspiring me lately, and it's really that's really what winter, like I see these winter scenes with the northern lights in them, and I just love them. So I like to try to recreate them with different paint mediums, and so that's where this page starts going. That's why I brought in that pop of yellow in the middle, and then I wanted it to be very loose, but I didn't want to use watercolors, so I'm adding tons of water to these acrylic paints. And so here it is, completely dry, and I think because of the Dina or the Jane Davenport paints, they're super matte. It dried with this like really chalky kind of effect, and it was really cool. I liked it, but I brought in my favorite Dina Wakley Media paints, and I just wanted to deepen up those edges. Like I said, I wanted to have a bright sky, but I wanted it to be darker along the edges, so I just started finger painting. And you guys know me, I love finger painting in my art journals. And so I just added the paint to the edges of the page and just kind of blended it down into the middle, and tried to keep the middle very with that same color, but mostly it does get covered up, and it's crazy because it was pretty. I liked it, but this is what happens in art journaling, and this is one of the things that I love about it, because I could have totally just like given up that night when I saw where it was going, and I didn't like where it was going, and I was kind of frustrated, but it was late, and you know that happens when it gets late, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing, like I question myself as an artist. Am I an artist? How can I not get this idea from my head out into this page? And but you just keep adding different layers. Like now I'm coming in, I've got that dark area, and I pulled out, I think I used these in those mixed media ornaments that we made, and they were still kind of in my mind and sitting out on the side of my desk. And so I thought it would be cool to bring them in and see how they look, because I have all this darkness on the edges, and oh my goodness, on the dark areas, the iridescent quality of these Pebeo paints just completely pops off the page. They look blue and they look pink in the bottles, but the iridescent violet and the iridescent green actually is what you see. And then I had lost a lot of that yellow, and I went back and forth about adding this fluorescent yellow, but it was a good choice. It blended well with those other Pebeo paints, and so I just kind of streaked it across the middle of that area and absolutely loved it. So now I'm coming in, I'm bringing in some distressed crayons, which as we go into the rest of the page, I feel like they kind of hindered some of the things that I wanted to do later. But that's the thing with art journaling, and you know, you learn about the different supplies that you have in your stash, and you learn how they play with other supplies. So that blue I brought in was a little bit too bright, so I brought in weathered wood, which was a lot more moodier and darker and blended well with this page, as well as the colors that were originally in that pattern paper. And you can see that I am covering up a lot of that paper in the background, but we are leaving still some of that showing through. So now I'm going to come in and do some stamping just to add some more texture. And I don't know, I just felt like this page, I was trying to do a lot of the techniques that got me interested in art journaling, which was the collage, and then paint, of course, and then adding texture with different stamps. And the modeling paste, because I hardly ever use that. So it was like kind of, I wanted to use all these things that got me started. Sprays and stencils, I love those. I still love those and use those constantly. So this is another color in that Lindy Stamp Gang set, and I was just really experimenting with these, and I think I got my answer as far as, are they permanent? Because I was trying to find that out, if these were permanent so that they would do well with layers on top of layers. But I think keep an eye on that right hand page, because I end up going into that one and wiping it off at some point. I think it's right after I do the Stabilo mark saw to give some shading to these trees. I kind of take a baby wipe and wipe them down where they got too dark. And I think I lose that stenciling, which really answers my question as far as if these are permanent sprays. And if you know the answer and you want to leave a comment, that would be great too. I did a little bit of research trying to find that out, and then I was like, well, it doesn't matter, I'll just go and try it myself. That's why I tried it as my first layer, which of course got completely covered up with acrylic paint anyway. But these trees still have some of it on there, I think. Anyway, so where was I going? When I have these long art journal pages, it's definitely a challenge to do these voiceovers, but I actually sped this up 4 times what it took me. So here I go. There's where I'm wiping it off, and I think you can see that most of that, yep, it just wiped away. So that answers my question. If you have any tips or anything like that, I know Deco Art has permanent sprays, and I know Marabou has permanent sprays, and so does Brutus Monroe. That was that gray spray that I used. So there are permanent sprays out there that you can use for your underlayers, which is great. So here I am just brightening it up, adding some stars to the page, which is where I was going with this, because like I said, I wanted it to be like a night sky. So here I am trying to add some doodles around the trees, and this is where I feel like the distress crayons kind of hindered what I wanted to do here, but I was able to get some doodles around the trees using my white paint pen. I just kept activating it. That's why I'm lifting up that page underneath. I'm just kind of pushing it down, activating it, getting it nice and juicy, and then I can kind of go around and add some doodles to the trees. And I think I knew this. I think I know this about the distress crayons. It's just that, you know, when you don't use something a lot in your art journaling, you kind of forget, well, how is this going to react to things underneath, on top, blah, 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 blah. So it's just a process whenever I get into a page. Now I wanted to do, obviously I wanted to add some splatters to the page. This is going to create more of that night sky look, because these are like the stars. And I love the Tim Holtz splatter brush for this. It's just super easy to get splatters. You can get large splatters, you can get super fine splatters, and I like hitting it on the page to get some really funky splatters. I wanted to do some journaling around these trees. I tried a few things that were absolutely not working in my stash. They were just old and dried out. So I ended up using the white Dina Wakley paint in the bottle with that fine tip, and I hated it. And then I smushed it down with a paper towel, and I hated it more. So this is stuff that happens, like truly happens in an art journal. And this is where I say you just have to push past it. So I hated it. I smushed it down. I tried to go over it with the black journal pen, but it was just way too wet still. I probably could have gone and overnight or something, but I was too impatient. So I went around it with the Stabilo Marksaw pencil, and then I added some more color with the same distress crayons that I used, just kind of to cover up that mistake. I really didn't want to lose the color that I had on my trees with gesso or anything like that, so I just went over it, and the paint was still kind of wet. Even though I had stepped away for a little while, it was still kind of wet, so it was like blending in with the distress crayons. And then I really liked that, so you can see how it's kind of blending with the distress crayons. So then I came in directly with the white paint and added some more streaks of white to the trees, just to kind of blend that in, make it look like kind of less of a mistake and more of a intentional thing. But it turned into an intentional thing as I was trying to cover it up. I really liked the way that looked, so that's what happens a lot in art journaling, and in my pages particular. So there's still some areas that I can see the mistake that or the thing that didn't really turn out the way I wanted, but in the end it's okay because it's in my art journal, right? It's not fine art by any means. So the final thing that I wanted to do was add some words, and I love these Tim Holtz stickers. You guys know I'm trying to use them up. They were sticking fine without me pulling in the matte medium. Pulling in the matte medium was a mistake. I tried to add some to the page, and it wasn't sticking. And like, I don't know if that's the distress crayon again, like, because I've never really had that problem. So the other ones, I just added the matte medium on top and they were fine, but this one I struggled with. I ended up taking it off completely and then putting a different one on, even though I really wanted the Noel one on there, which I end up adding later, and you'll see in the final pictures. I just put it right over top this Joy to the World. But yeah, I don't know what was going on there, what was creating that, but I just ended up putting the matte medium on top, and that worked well. And you can see I added the first Noel here, and then I really like how it turned out. I love all the texture that I created. I love that you can kind of see some of the stamping. You can still see some of the pattern paper through all of those layers. The background is absolutely my favorite part of this entire piece, because it really makes those trees pop. I feel like they even look like reflections, light reflections of what's going on in that background. So it was really, really fun to see the process and see it through, even though it was frustrating in parts. That's just, I want to encourage you guys that sometimes things get super ugly before they get better, and to just continue to work through them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this day 6 of the 12 days of Creative Christmas. I will be back tomorrow with another video. And if you like this one, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. It encourages me to keep going. And I do need that encouragement sometimes. So if you click here on my picture, you can subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future videos in this series or any others. And I'll put a link here to more mixed media videos if you like those. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow for another 12 days of Creative Christmas video. Until then, stay inspired, be creative, and share that with others. Bye.